Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. This is going to be for a Kia coolant leak. So this is just going to be a video on if you have a coolant leak, how to really detect it. It can't really be specific to a Kia, but we're just going to basically go through it. So the coolant on this vehicle is pouring out of it and I can't figure out where it's coming from just yet. Customer had the vehicle towed in, so I filled it up with water because it's going to pour out anyways, and I'm going to be probably pulling something out which is going to make all the coolant pour out, so don't use coolant. Just use water. And then if you have a pressure tester, you can get these kits at your local parts store. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them from Snap-on, Mac Tools. But basically the kit looks just like this. Okay, it has all these different fittings and everything that'll go on there. And yeah, so basically you attach it here and you're gonna put pressure into it. And then you're going to find out and pinpoint where your leak is coming from. Very straightforward, very easy to do. And it has a pressure release valve right here. So if you pressurized it and there's no leak, you can depressurize it by pushing that. It's also a pull pin as well. But yeah, pretty cool, pretty nifty. Okay, that just gives you a straight through right there so you can pump air into the system so you can see where it's coming out. Now, time to find the leak. So after going through this vehicle, road testing it, scanning it, doing the diagnostic, I actually found that there was no leak on it, but I found the fault on the vehicle. Basically, what's happening with this customer's vehicle is that they're getting some dripping going on after the vehicle has been driven for a while because it's boiling over and coming out of the overflow hose right here, and then coming into the reservoir and boiling all over top and down, coming down the side. I pressure tested the vehicle to make sure there's no coolant leak or anything like that. I couldn't find anything. But what I found is that the thermostat, which sits actually just right here, and that's what the point of this video is, we're going to be doing a thermostat down here. And then just on here, it's hard to see, but right down there, attached this wire, is going to be the coolant temperature sensor. So we're going to be replacing a coolant temperature sensor on the right side of the engine, and we're going to be doing on the left side of the engine a thermostat. So we're going to dive right into it. First things first, take off the valve cover to gain access to the temperature sensor. Also, remove the cap here to relieve any pressure in your system that you may have. Now, doing this job, there's a few ways you can get to the thermostat. You can get it from below. It's quite challenging because you will have your AC condenser lines in the way, but it is accessible that way. Some people, they'll leave the alternator in and just get a wrench down here and just loosen those two 10mm bolts. That's another way. Personally, I've done them all. The way that I like to do is I like to pull the alternator out. It gives me clear access in. That way I can see the new thermostat going in properly and the gasket sealing, because the last thing you want to do is you want to replace your thermostat and then you don't have it seated correctly and it's leaking. So I like taking out the alternator and getting it out of my way. So it's a 12mm bolt for here, a 12mm bolt for here. It'll loosen the tensioner off of here so you can manipulate your alternator. There's gonna be a 12mm bolt here and here. I've already cracked these loose. You're gonna remove this entire mechanism off the assembly, and then that way you can get access to the next thing. You're gonna have clips here, another harness clip down there. Use a pry tool to get the clip off of here and then disconnect your alternator one here. But before you do that, don't forget to remove the positive terminal off the battery. After you've gone ahead and you have removed all the bolts, you can take this bracket off and set it aside. Now you have access to your alternator better. There's one more bolt that's just down below there as well. And now that I've loosened the 14mm bolt that's just underneath the pulley here, I have the ability to actually move this back and forth now. So I'm gonna push it all the way forward and walk the belt off. I'm gonna zap strap it to somewhere over here because I'm not here to do another belt. So I wanna be in and out of here as quick as I can. So I like to zap strap the belts up so they actually stay in place with the other pulley. So when you're done, you can easily just flip it back over. You're gonna wiggle and shimmy it back and forth, and then eventually it will free up. Pull out your alternator, and when you're doing this, that's where it's sitting after, so I always like to clean up the channel because it fills up with gunk and debris. Now, our thermostat housing unit is right there. We're gonna pull that off and a lot of coolant's gonna come out. So as you can see, there's a connection right there. I'm going to put a plastic bag over that because I don't need coolant going into it and then contaminating the connection on there. So before you pull out your thermostat, make sure you cover that sensor right there. Okay, just right there. After you have a catch basin underneath there to catch all the coolant that's going to pour out of there, and you've taped off the sensor, which is sitting right there that you can see is taped up, you have 2 bolts that are sitting on the thermostat. Yeah, you guessed it, 12mm bolts. Kia loves 12mm bolts. We're going to break those both free, and then we're going to separate the thermostat from the block. Now, some people, they'll remove the hose clamp to give themselves easier access. I've done both. It doesn't really matter to me. But yeah, break them free now and expect a lot of coolant to pour out. Knots are off and it will instantly start to pour coolant out. So I'm gonna block the light. Basically, you're just gonna get this hose, pull it off, and voila, right there, that is gonna be your thermostat. Where you see the coolant pouring out of that little piece there, that's actually gonna be your weep hole. Pay very close attention to where it is. You wanna have your weep hole at the very top of your new thermostat that you're installing on the vehicle. When you pull that out, it's gonna gush out the remaining one because there's a bunch of coolant behind it that's just coming out the weep hole. Just shimmy it, shake it. This one looks like it's seized in there, so we're gonna have to do it with 2 hands. And as soon as you pull it out, basically Niagara Falls comes out of it. Okay, because that's almost the lowest point of the block for the coolant. So it's gonna take a lot of coolant to refill it. So now we've got the thermostat out of the way. Compare it to the new one that you have to make sure it's the right one. Now I like to put a little bit of brake clean on a rag and clean around the circumference of the hole, just to make sure there's not dirt or grime or a gasket, anything like that that's gonna block or obstruct the new gasket from seating in there nice and tight. So do yourself a favor and do that too. When you're doing this job, putting it in this way is the wrong way to do it, okay? You wanna have it this way here. And on this specific vehicle, see how there's a little rubber nub in here? It's hard to see on camera, but down here, right at the tip of my finger, there's a little bit of an indent where this nubbin will be. Now that it's in, you can see where the indent is, right there. So that's where you want your rubber nubbin at the top of your thermostat to get in. You want to push your gasket all the way around to make sure that it is in there nice and seated properly. Then you're going to take your thermostat housing and you're going to put it back on. Now it is a plastic housing. It does have a metal shroud around it, but there is a plastic housing this entire piece. So do not take an impact gun to it, finger tight it down, and then use a wrench or a ratchet to secure it down. Don't use an impact. And like I said, clean this up before you put your new alternator in. It'll make your life easier. I'm gonna rinse down this area, and you can probably notice that the bag is still on the sensor. That's there because I'm gonna rinse it down with water. Because once you put your alternator there, you shouldn't be rinsing your alternator up top with water. So I'm gonna rinse down this area because I had a bunch of coolant pour all over the place, including the skid plate. And I don't want the customer to have any coolant dripping on their driveway when they take it home. So we're gonna rinse that down with some water right now. Now we're gonna pull the bag off because we don't need that on there anymore. Okay, the little water goes into it, it's not a big deal. But now we're gonna go and put that alternator back in there. So we're gonna go backwards now, okay? So make sure your bolts are tight because you don't get access to them after you put your alternator in there, you won't have room. So make sure they're tight, and then you can reinstall your alternator. First things first, get it in the groove. After it's in the groove, you're gonna slide the gigantic 14mm bolt through it so it can thread in the other side to clamp it down there. You want to just have it snug. Don't make it super tight because you need to have it able to swivel and adjust after you've got the tension on it correctly. Keep in mind when you're installing the alternator back on, a little trick, if you put the 14mm bolt through the alternator, you can actually use it as a feed and a guide to drop it in the hole, and then you can secure and snug it up. But again, keep it loose until everything else is tight, and then you can snug it up. Also, when you're doing this one, there is going to be one long bolt and one short bolt. So make sure that the long bolt goes in the appropriate spot. Obviously, you can easily tell that the short bolt goes in the front here and the long one goes back there. Now, when it comes to tightening it, you're going to have these bolts tightened up nice and secure. Your alternator is still loose. So you're going to tighten this up before you tighten up your locking one. So my belt's back on. Zip tie is cut off. Thank you for your service, zip tie. And you're going to see, so as you tighten it down, you're going to see that the alternator flexes and comes out further towards the front of the vehicle. See, it's moving. You want to keep going until you have enough tension on your belt where you can't really you can twist it sideways, okay? So right now that's a good tension, so I'm good where I'm at, and I'm going to lock down my bolt now. All right, so the tension on there is good. Now we're gonna go and put our clips back on. So you wanna bring your harness back forward again, because we took it and pushed it to the back, and we're gonna click everything in, including the ignition on the side of the starter, okay, for the power supply. And there we go. We have our connection back here to the alternator, to the AC condenser down here, as well as to the power grounding for your charging of your battery off of here. And that's pretty much how you change the thermostat on there. Now we're gonna jump to the other side. So if anybody was using this video for how to change an alternator or how to change a thermostat, you're now done. Double check your work, fill your coolant reservoir, and then you're done. However, now we're gonna jump to the other side and we're gonna change the temperature sensor because it's reading and throwing codes as well. So we're gonna change that for the customer as well. So on this side, double check your work and you're done. Now move on. Now jumping over to this side, there's a few ways to get access to the temperature sensor. It sits right at my index finger right there. Because I already did the thermostat on this vehicle, I'm probably just gonna take off this coolant hose. It'll be the most efficient way of doing this job because there's no coolant in here. But that's the fastest way to get access to it. Some people will remove the clip in the housing because it is in the way. Then you get a wrench in there. But you just basically have a pressure tab clip that you're gonna remove. But I'm gonna take off the coolant hose here to see if I can gain access to that that nut there, or I might just take off this one. We'll see. All right, so jumping right into the meat and potato of it. So I was trying to find the best way to kind of help you guys out so you guys don't have to do what I did. The best way that I personally have found out, you can leave your air box here, but I do recommend that you remove your intake valve, your intake rubber boot. And then I would recommend removing your coolant hose from here to here. You don't have to remove any of the sensors or anything like that. You do have to remove this hose that runs along here and kind of tuck the rest of the stuff away here. This harness bracket right here, there's a 10mm bolt that sits just underneath it and then another 10 back there. You can't get a wrench in here because you don't have enough room because as you can see, this neck sticks out and you can't get a wrench in there enough. You have no clearance. Even on like my super small mini wrenches, I couldn't have enough torque. So what I did was I used a deep end socket for a 19 and put it on there, but after removing the 10mm bolt that sits right here and then the 10mm that sits back there, it just sits right there at my index finger. Doing that allowed me to lift this up out of my way where I could get my deep socket 19 in there and then a ratchet so I can break it free. And now it's just finger tight in there. So just taking it off right now so you guys can see. There you go. That is going to be your coolant temperature sensor, okay? And then this is not your thermostat, okay? So if you're looking to do this job, this is not your thermostat. Your thermostat is at the beginning of the video like I already showed you. This is just your coolant temperature sensor. So we're going to get rid of this guy and we're going to replace it with the new one. Like I do with every product, I always make sure that it is exactly the same pins in there, right? Because you don't want to put the wrong part in there. But this is a different brand. You can clearly see that this one's got an acorn tip where it's a flat tip here, but they will work. And now that you can see that shiny brass piece right there, that's the new temperature sensor in there. Now we're gonna work our way backwards and put everything back together and then fill this Kia up with coolant, run it, and then go for a test drive and make sure we get all the bubbles out before we release it back to the customer. So now we're gonna put the hose back on, intake boot back on, air box back on, and the evap hose here as well. We're gonna put that back on. All right, so after putting the hose clamp back on, the evap line back on, and then connecting your sensor down there, making sure it's nice and snug and tight, just assembling yourself on the way back out. Pretty much just double check all your stuff that you're doing, that you removed, you put back. Still gonna put the air box on right now. Then we're gonna pour this thing full of coolant, and then we're gonna run it through a bleeding process, which I'll also show you how to bleed your engine. But you're pretty much almost done. All right, so now I've got everything put back together. I've got the coolant filled up all the way to the top. I've overflowed on the overflow. Sorry, I filled up on the overflow and made it overfilled. Now what you're gonna do to bleed your system, you're gonna go into the vehicle, turn the vehicle on. Expect your coolant level to drop because a ton of coolant came out because you did pull the thermostat out of here and all the coolant came out of the bottom end of the block. So you wanna make sure that you turn it on, fan on full blast, heat on full blast, and you're gonna run the system like that for a little bit, watching the bubbles and whatnot. After it stops taking the coolant lower and lower and lower, then you can cap it and go for a drive. And then after your drive, you wanna check that level again. Be careful because this one has got a pressurized rad cap. Use a rag and a cloth and like a glove of some sort so you don't get burnt. Expect a lot of air to hiss out. But that's pretty much it. So this video is basically how to do this. So I'm gonna jump in the vehicle now and I'm gonna bleed the coolant. All right, so engine's on, heat is on full blast, fan is on full blast, and it's already gone through a few cycles of taking coolant in, but now it stops. So now I'm gonna cap it, I'm gonna go for a drive and double check that it's not overheating and how it's performing. All right, and during the road test here, we've got no check engine light on. There is no temperature gauge on these Kias. So if you have a scan tool like so, that's the best way to read if you're overheating or not, so you can actually read the coolant temperature sensor. But driving it shifts normally and it is not overheating. So that is basically it. So thanks again for watching. Hopefully you found this video helpful and useful. This is how to change a thermostat and how to change a thermostat temperature sensor. You can also use this video as a how to change an alternator because I had to remove and replace that to get access to the thermostat. So anyways, hopefully you found this helpful and useful. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And if you have any questions when you're doing this job yourself, feel free to hit me up in the comments below and I'm happy to help you out. Thanks again and see you in the next video.